Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to my humble abode. This is my home. I'm doing this one from home. So, yeah, okay. Well, we're deeply into Hawthorne at this point, and if you haven't already, please be sure you've watched Braylyn's really wonderful presentation on Hawthorne. She does a very good job showing how Hawthorne was responding in all kinds of ways to the transcendentalists, even while he himself thought they were, kind of cray-cray and not in a good way, okay? So have a look at that, okay? And then what I'm going to do is, oh, and by the way, you've done a really nice job talking about birthmark on that online discussion. So I finished looking at those late last night. And so now what I'm going to do in this video is say a few words about the birthmark as a way of building on the discussions that we've already had. So, okay, so birthmark. Maybe you're starting to see a pattern here in Hawthorne. I know a lot of you have read Scarlet Letter, and of course we've read Minister's Black Veil. Now we have the birthmark. And so all three of these are symbols, very deep, mysterious symbols. The veil, the birthmark, and then the Scarlet Letter. And each of those for Hawthorne represent some effort that we humans have to try to plumb the mystery of existence, plumb the mystery of the human heart, plumb the mystery of the Creator, plumb the mystery of all existence. And what I would challenge you to do is to consider what ultimately is Hawthorne saying. Can we ever fully, truly understand those mysteries? Okay, so we're going to see something very similar here with a birthmark. So we can just start off by saying, what the heck's wrong with Aylmer? I mean, why get so obsessed and hung up on just a little mark on his wife's cheek, who by any standard was just the sweetest, kindest, most devoted wife you can possibly imagine, beautiful, everything else. So, what the heck's his problem? So that makes us start to wonder, what is really going on? I should have put some makeup on. I should have put a birthmark on my face. Yeah, okay. What's really going on there? So that's what I'm going to start off this lecture here challenging you to do. What is going on with this birthmark? So flip over to page 378. If I can flip over to page 378. Yeah, here we go. Okay. All right, and so what I'm going to ask you to do, and actually you can just pause this lecture. In fact, I'd like you to pause this lecture, and don't pause it yet. Let me tell you what I want you to do first. Read page 378, starting to explain this conversation, and then read all the way down to just the first line of the next page. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to do a close and careful reading of this one page. So, what I'd like you to do is to read slowly and carefully. Just go through carefully, line by line. Imagine you've just lost a ring or a necklace out in the grass somewhere. And you're just going through carefully every square inch, seeing if you can find that ring. So I'd encourage you to do that with this one passage. Slow way down. And then circle every word, every phrase that you think is significant in terms of explaining what this birthmark really represents. And then try to arrive at some kind of understanding as to what you think Hawthorne is trying to say. Okay, so at this point, yeah, pause this video and spend a few minutes doing that, okay? And then we'll pick back up again. Okay, go ahead and pause. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you all have had a chance to do that. This is really a wonderful, rich passage. Whatever you think of Hawthorne, and just to be honest, I have kind of mixed feelings about him. But one thing that can't be gainsaid is that he was a true prose. He was a genius when it comes to innovating prose style. So he is truly a magnificent artist. Okay, so let me just pull out a few passages here from this page that I asked you to read. Skip down a few lines in that paragraph. It says, in the center of Georgiana's cheek there was a singular mark, deeply interwoven, as it were, with the texture and substance of her face. In the usual state of her complexion, a healthy though delicate bloom, the mark wore a tint of deeper crimson. So we have to start thinking, what does that crimson, what does deep red suggest? What does that color symbolize? Skip down a few more few more lines. Georgiana's lovers were wont to say that some fairy at her birth hour had laid her tiny hand upon the infant's cheek and left this impress there, in token of the magic endowments that were to give her such sway over all hearts. Okay, so it's a charm. It suggests some kind of erotic beauty, doesn't it? That it draws out the attraction, the amorous feelings of young men. Many a desperate swain, that means a lover, would have risked life for the privilege of pressing his lips to the mysterious hand. Okay, so there's some deep red crimson, so there's something erotic about this. Well, think about, Valentine's Day. It's no accident that we give red roses, right? Red is the color of passion. So in part, that's what's going on here. Okay, skip down to the bottom of that page, 378. It was the fatal flaw of humanity, which nature, in one shape or another, stamps ineffaceably on all her productions, either to imply that they are temporary and finite, or that their perfection must be wrought by toil and pain. Okay, so how could erotic love also suggest human imperfection? Really, really good question. Well, one thing I would like to suggest is, and some of you I think were commenting on this in your discussions, and it was really good, but it does suggest, ready for this, original sin. Okay, there's something erotic, mischievous. A small fairy put her handprint at her birth hour, right? Not an angel, I mean a fairy. They're mischievous, right? Mischievous, okay? So there's something, very earthly about this. Sensual. Red, again, the color of passion, eroticism, but also the stuff of original sin. The mark that's stamped on all humanity. I mean, think about Adam and Eve after they were screwed up and they got thrown out of the garden. That's one of the things that they were faced with, that they had to reproduce, and they would know death. So somehow reproduction, if we're reproducing, that suggests our own mortality. We have to reproduce because we're not going to be here much longer, okay? So we got to make sure the next generation is here to keep things going, right? Okay, so eroticism, death, they're all kind of linked together. Cycle of life type stuff. So there's something like that going on here. And so then the question then that has to arise here is, why in heaven's name is Aylmer trying to remove this thing? Well, it does suggest some kind of imperfection. So yeah, okay. So let's carry on then. Let me point out another passage here. Look over on page 388. 388. Okay. And you know, this is what comes to us if we're trying to remove a mark like that, which suggests human mortality, human imperfection, which suggests original sin. That birthmark then is a kind of reminder that all humanity, all of us, were marked by, we're all sons and daughters of Adam and Eve. So we've inherited the fruits of their original transgression. Okay, so, and as has Georgiana. Okay, so let's look at this. Look over on page 388. This is a few lines from the top. All right, its presence, the birthmark, had been awful. Its departure was more awful still. Watch the stain of the rainbow fading out of the sky, and you will know how that mysterious symbol passed away. And then skip down to the bottom, the last paragraph. I'm going to read a few lines there. Alas, it was true. The fatal hand had grappled with the mystery of life and was the bond by which an angelic spirit kept itself in union with a mortal frame. Okay, and then her soul, lingering a moment near her husband, took its heavenward flight. So you see what Hawthorne's trying to say here? That yes, we are all marked with original sin. We are marked with evil. We are marked with eroticism and passion and all those things that we associate with the earthly rather than with the heavenly. And so, but Hawthorne's trying to say that this original sin is what makes us human, and it keeps us human. So if I were to make myself pure of my original sin, how much longer am I going to be able to remain a human being alive and standing on two legs here at my home in Odessa, Texas, right? I'm going to be so perfect, I'm not going to be human anymore. And that says something about why Georgiana, once that birthmark was gone and she became perfect, that's why she died. Okay? Original sin is what makes us and keeps us human. You get rid of that, you successfully relieve us of original sin, well, you're going to be floating around with the angels and other perfect creatures like that. In other words, you're going to be dead. Okay? So, Aylmer had to learn that the hard way. And just as a quick side note here, this is again why Hawthorne had such trouble with the transcendentalists. He looked at the transcendentalists as being a lot like Aylmer. Quit mucking around trying to improve on human nature. Human nature has a lot of evil in it. If you try to monkey around with that, you're going to cause a lot of damage and some unintended consequences down the line. Here's a handy way to think about one theme that Hawthorne would offer, and it's this. The road to hell was paved with good intentions. Maybe your grandma told you that sometime. Okay, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. This is why he had real trouble with the transcendentalists. You know, they're trying to improve on human nature. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons I myself have trouble with Hawthorne. Hawthorne was against the abolitionists. He said, stop trying. Yes, slavery, it's not a great thing, but evil is just a reality. Accept it. Stop monkeying around with that institution, and stop trying to set the slaves free. Evil's going to manifest itself in some other way. So that's why I have trouble with Hawthorne. Of course, slavery was evil. And of course, something had to be done about it. And thank goodness some people had the courage to get up and do something about it. So I guess this is where you'd see where my own temperament's different from Hawthorne's. I think things can be improved. Our own hearts can be improved, and they must be improved. That's my own view. And Hawthorne would disagree with me on that. So, okay, that's fine. Live and let live, right? Okay, so, all right. Actually, this is a good place to, I'm going to dig deeper in the story here and get more into the question that you guys were responding to. But let me let that be part 2. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here.